Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the chat with me, Bill, the company's expert. Welcome to How to Get Hired, episode number 14, where we talk about how to get hired. This is a Q&A, so we'll be taking questions. Type your question into the chat, and I will be only too happy to tell you what I think. The word of the day is ineffable. Ineffable. Have you heard that word before? It means something is inexpressible. It means that words cannot describe how big or wonderful or extreme something is. You know, for example, let's use it in the sentence. The feeling you get when you drive a Volkswagen is so ineffable, right? Or a Datsun. If you drive a Datsun, I take my hat off to you. Yes, you guys like what I've done with my hair. I made it extra fuzzy for you guys today. I was a little bit rushed, so let's see if I can adjust things here. Okay, so how to get hired. Now, I want to start with a question. A question I received, or actually a comment on one of my videos. To the 25 of you who are here, thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. This was the comment. It says, job interviews are such BS. You have to lie and pretend that you will be some magical employee that wants to be a slave to the company when you really want to say, look, I just need this job to pay my bills. That's an awesome comment. Number one, you're absolutely right. Yes, that is kind of how it goes. However, if I was to guess, okay, if I was to try and make an educated guess here, I would say that this person has never been a salesperson in their life. Okay, because yes, we know this is true. I mean, who wants to surrender themselves to a company to do menial work? Nobody, right? It's crap. And when you go to a job interview, it's well known that you have to show enthusiasm. If you take the attitude and you signal that, oh yeah, you know, look, I just need a job. I just need money coming in. I'll do anything. I'll do this. I'll do whatever. I'm not particularly excited about this, but hey, whatever. I'll do it to get money, right? If you come in and you communicate that in some way, okay, either explicitly or through body language, you know, nonverbal communication, all that kind of stuff, you're probably not going to get selected, right? That's kind of how this goes. Think about advertising, okay? You see ads for stuff, especially in this day and age, you see ads everywhere, right? You even see them on my screen for various things. You know, look at how the ads present things. They try and present it in the strongest possible light. They say, this product is fantastic. It's wonderful. It'll make all your dreams come true. The stuff of fairy tales, right? That's how they present it. And if you're trying to get someone to kind of, you want to try and persuade them that, yeah, this is a thing you should go with, you kind of have to do that. If you were to come up and say, look, okay, here's a product. It's okay. You know, it's not great, but you know, it does the job usually. Sometimes it breaks. Sometimes you get a defective unit, but most of the time it's okay. You know, it's a reasonably good bet, I suppose. How many people are going to buy that product? Probably not many. Now, points for being honest, right? But in terms of how effective that is, unfortunately, it's not very effective. Okay? We can argue all day about whether that should be more effective, but the reality is that it kind of isn't when you try that in real life. In the vast majority of situations, that's not going to work. So that translates to, if you're trying to get a job, and when you write your resume and when you talk to the recruiter, you know, when you go to a job interview and all of that entire process, one of the things that you have to sort of do is you sort of put on, I know it's kind of reprehensible to some people, but you want to try and sell yourself. You want to say, look, don't hire any of these other people. Hire me. I'm the best. You need to pick me. And let me tell you why, right? That's kind of what you have to do. And the thing is, if anyone has ever tried to sell you something, okay, you behave in exactly the same way. If you have to select something and one of the options says, look, this is okay, I guess. You could pick me or you could not, I don't care, right? You don't pick that either. You don't go with that option. So that's just human nature. Unfortunately, this is something that people who have never worked in sales, unfortunately, have to learn. I didn't come up through sales. I'm not a salesperson, but unfortunately, you have to be able to do this, right, in order to persuade someone. So that's what I'll say. So I actually like that comment because you're saying what everybody's thinking. Okay, it's not a bad comment. You don't have a bad attitude. You're being honest. Okay, that is the situation. But it's just everyone has to get to the point where you realize that, like, yeah, okay, I'll be honest. I'm not super excited about this, but I want the job. So in order to get the job, I want them to believe that I'm passionate about it. Unfortunately, that's the way a lot of things work. Okay, we have some questions. It's great to see some questions. ETS2, ATS, that just rolls off the tongue. Trucker Martin says, hi. Hey, Trucker Martin, keep on trucking. Yvonne says, good morning, Bill. Good morning, Yvonne. Thank you for being here. You guys, you are awesome. Louis says, hi, all. Hi, all. I got hired, signed offers, did background checks and references. After a week, I was contacted that the job offer is $30 an hour. Of $30 an hour is $24 an hour. That they made a mistake with the grading. Please advise. Well, listen, what do you know about these people? Well, not very much, other than they screw up, right? Is that a good first impression? No. We all know that could be calculated to try and screw you over. They wanted to advertise the job for $30 an hour. That's the rate. But to get lots of people to apply for it and want to do it, and then they spring on you that, it's $24 an hour. Okay, it could be that. There's no way of knowing whether it's an honest mistake or it's some calculated, underhanded tactic. Okay, proceed as if $24 an hour is something you want. The reason they would do that kind of tactic is because people get their emotions caught up in it. If you've already interviewed and you're invested in, the process, you might proceed with a $24 an hour job, whereas if it had been 24 hours and they disclosed that up front, you may probably not have applied for it. So yeah, it could be an honest mistake and they're just that incompetent, or it could be underhanded ploy. Now, which one is worse? Take your pick. David says, I am 61 years old. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. You probably have a lifetime of wisdom that the rest of us don't have. I was laid off last September, a year ago, as a VP, and was in a good position to simply retire. Several things have changed, and now I want or need to get an executive job. How do I explain what I've done the last 13 months? Well, okay. Number one, first of all, you want to avoid bringing that up if at all possible. That's the first thing I'll say. Okay, you don't want to draw attention and lead with, I was off for 13 months, I was reassessing. You don't want to volunteer that. You want to try and downplay that, not mention it. Now, if they do bring it up, okay, you have a few different options. It works a little bit differently with executive stuff, okay? Because usually, at least if you do it like a typical person in that position, you're not dealing with idiot recruiters. You're either dealing with true executive recruiters, right? 1% of recruiters who call themselves executive recruiters are actually executive recruiters. You're either dealing with them or you're simply dealing with, a hiring manager, like a CEO or a VP or a C-level, whatever, board member, whatever. Okay, so it's not going to be quite as artificial as dealing with a recruiter. Now, at that level, it's not quite as bad if you admit that, I just took some time off. I was going to reassess. I took some time off to spend with my family for the first time in X many years, but you could say like, I was just bored. I need to do something constructive. I need to do something that I'm passionate about, and accomplish things. It's just part of my DNA, and I want to go back. Like you could say something like that if that's accurate for you, or you could find some other reason for that 13-month gap. If you improved yourself in any way, you went back and you experienced something, you learned something. I would focus on that. Say I took 13 months off to sort of reassess and get some training in this because I wanted to do this, but, I wanted to do this thing, but I don't quite know enough. I felt I need some training. So, now if that's not true, if that's not accurate, you didn't do any training, I would quickly take a course or some free online course or something, just so it isn't an outright lie. Okay. You might be massaging the truth, as we say, but it's not a lie, okay? That would be my approach. Now, the rest of it depends on the details of your situation, who you're talking to, all that kind of stuff. There isn't sort of a cookie cutter, one-size-fits-all way of addressing that. It depends on the situation. I know that's not very helpful, but that's the reality. So hopefully that's a start, okay? Thanks, David. That's a great question. I don't get a lot of questions for executive hiring. So that's really cool. Okay. Dr. Decal. Something I've always wondered, those stickers in the United States, do you say decal or decal? Because I would say decal, but I've heard a lot of people say decal. So maybe I'm just out to lunch or something. It wouldn't be the first time. Okay. Dr. Decal says, good morning. Is it still advisable to call and follow up after you submit an application? If so, what are the best things to say? Thank you. Dorothy. That's a great question, Dorothy. A lot of people have been asking that recently. Yes, there's absolutely no harm in following up, assuming you're not pestering them. Now, what do I mean by pestering them? Okay, if you're following up the same day as something happens, like for example, you have an interview on Tuesday morning, and by 4 p.m. on Tuesday after your interview, you're already calling saying like, so, am I moving to the next round? That would be a little, that's not really protocol. You would leave at least one business day between any kind of follow-up for anything. That's usually a rule of thumb. Secondly, it's absolutely no problem in following up. You don't have to worry that you're making a nuisance of yourself. Okay. A lot of people worry. They say, I want to follow up and I want to know, but I don't want to pester anyone or annoy anyone. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You call or you send an email and you just say, hello, I'm just following up. I had an interview on Tuesday morning and I'm just following up to see if there's been any progress on it or if there's any next steps forthcoming. Thank you very much. And that's a great opportunity, by the way, to reiterate that, you're passionate about the job or something like that. I wouldn't go on at length. I would just say like in, a short sentence, I'm very passionate about the job and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much. Something like that if you're sending an email or leaving a message. Okay. If you're doing it by phone, which is much more effective because it signals that you care more, you're more engaged and passionate about that particular job. Okay. You call and you say, hello, I'm whatever. My name is, your name, right? Alexander Aloysius Bunthorne, Karistopoulos. And I'm just following up to see if there was any updates on this position. If there was any follow-up. And that's all you have to say. And then they'll say whatever they're going to say. And you say, okay, thank you very much. If anything does come up, please let me know. Take care. Okay, so it's really not a big deal. Now, how many times to follow up? I get questions where people ask me, how many times should I follow up? Can I call 3 times? Can I call 10 times? I would say, look, follow up once if you want to. You don't have to. As a default, if you're just sending out job applications, you went for interviews. In all honesty, I would not follow up as a default thing to all jobs. If they are going to call you back, they'll call you back. That's usually how that works. If you don't hear from them, the way this stuff works is that's basically a no. Okay, the phone doesn't ring. It means no. It means no until you hear a yes. Okay, that's how they like to deal with people in these situations. So you adjust your behavior to cater to that. We'll talk about that later. But if it's something you're really, interested in, it's very important to you, I would follow up once, certainly. Maybe 2 days later, 2 business days later, something like that. You could maybe call a second time, maybe a week after your initial interview or whatever it is. I would not follow up more than 3 times. Okay. If you haven't heard by like 2 weeks, it really doesn't look like it's happening. There's always exceptions, but just playing the odds, 99% chance it's a no. Okay. Now that's how this stuff works. So you like that? I'm sick, by the way. Did I mention that? I'm sick. But in true executive tradition, you medicate yourself to the hilt and then you just get on with it. Can't call in sick. What the hell was I saying? The way your behavior should be when operating in this system is you keep moving forward. Don't keep looking back, sort of going over in your mind like, I hope the phone rings. I hope the phone rings. Don't do that. It's not good for your mental health. You keep focusing on the next opportunity. Okay. Instead of sitting by the phone or sitting by your email or your messaging, whatever, be focused on the next job opportunity. Okay. That's how these things usually play out. That's what you should be doing, in my opinion. Okay, Lee Dixon. Lee Dixon says, how would you respond to recruiters during the interview that suggest you're overqualified for a role? Or why are you applying for this role when you appear overqualified? Well, listen, now you get to all these BS questions, these thinly veiled, poorly disguised questions where they're meant to sort of A, make you uncomfortable, and B, reveal stuff about you. Here's what's going on, okay? They called you for an interview. They saw your resume or your job application. They looked at it. They looked at yours with everybody else's, and they picked you to come in and do an interview, okay? That signals that, according to them, you are not overqualified, okay? So they've just demonstrated that you are not overqualified. They're not going to pick a resume of a person who's completely inappropriate for a job. Everyone can see it by looking at their resume and call them in for an interview. That's ridiculous. It's a waste of their time. It's a waste of resources. And quite frankly, they don't have time for that kind of crap because hiring someone from a job and going through this standard practice is very time consuming and labor intensive. Okay. So first of all, when they say it looks like you're overqualified for the job, they're lying. Okay. It's pretty obvious. Now, they have 2 reasons for asking this question. Number one is to make you uncomfortable and get a rise out of you and see how you behave under an uncomfortable stimuli. Okay. Which, by the way, you don't get upset. You don't let it rile you. Okay. And the way to do that is to practice. Okay. The way you prepare for job interviews is you do practice job interviews. Okay. And then you go to a lot of job interviews and you will just naturally get good over time. Okay. After, say 10 job interviews that you've gone to, 20 job interviews, you will have heard pretty much every question they're going to ask. It might be in different forms, but you've heard them all before. Okay. So you become an old pro at this. Secondly, okay, what they're asking you is basically, how are you qualified for this? Okay. Now, I could go on at length about this, but I'll skip to the end. The short version is, you know what they're looking for because they've stated it in the job posting. They've said, these are the requirements. This is what we're looking for. Someone with this, and this. Okay? So the answer, of course, is, when they ask you, are you qualified, is, oh, no, not at all. And then you reiterate, like, well, I have this qualification, okay? 3 to 5 years experience at this. That was on the job posting. I have that. And I also have this, right? This education, right? That was also in the job posting. And I have these skills and these traits, which were also in the job posting. Right? It's basically another form of being asked, why should we hire you? Okay? Which is another form of, what are your strengths? And you tell them your strengths. You tell them how you meet all these different things. And in the process of doing that, you're friendly, you're personable, you're easy to deal with. You don't get offended. You don't get upset. You don't get like hyper nervous, and raise red flags that way. Okay? And that's how you pass that question, okay? You're obviously not overqualified if you're there. It just works like that. I did a video on my channel a long time ago where I was asked a variation of that question, but I was asked that in a very rude way, and it really crossed the line for me at the time. And the person that I was interviewing with was the hiring manager, so if I was to have gotten that job, I would have reported to that person, presumably. And I just decided, like, no, that's crossing the line. If I don't want to work for someone who behaves this way, because it showed a lack of respect, and it was, just, as I said, crossing the line. It wasn't like a sort of calculated tactic. It was from the heart. And that was a deal breaker for me. But barring that, this is how you answer that question. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a great question, Lee. David says, yes, thanks. That helps a lot. Great. Thank you for saying so, David. It looks like we're au courant with all the questions. So I just want to say, see, this time I'd written down a few topics so I can fill dead air. Things that are based on what people have commented and said. By the way, a lot of people ask questions in the comments under my videos. Unfortunately, it's just not possible for me to type out these long answers in the comments. That's just impractical for me. So this is the forum to ask me questions and stuff like that on the live streams. I want to do a shout out to my channel members. You guys are awesome. There's a little thing up there. It says join my channel. You get members only videos. You also are able to ask questions in the other live stream I do, which is late on Friday, which is called Beyond Employment, where we talk about not how to pass job interviews. We talk about alternative ways of making a living other than being an employee. It's actually quite common, but it's not the default thing. So, it's sort of like employee, business owner / entrepreneur, investor. That's usually how those things work. Okay. So we're not talking about investors. That's kind of outside the scope of what I talk about, but we're talking about starting businesses, being an entrepreneur, getting side hustles, making money on the side, eliminating the need for a job, breaking away from this corporate slavery. So if that's of any interest to you, I have a live stream on Friday where we talk exclusively about that. And everyone can see it, but only members can ask questions. So if you become a member, you can ask questions. There you go. Lee says, great advice as always. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lee. That's very kind of you. Yes. So one thing I wanted to reiterate, because I got a couple of comments on, and this is people who are asking me. They ask me something related to the fact that when you go for a job interview and you interact with an employer of some kind who claims to be looking for an employee, some of the things they say and some of the things they do are not consistent with this supposed motivation of theirs to find the best candidate. Right? A lot of the things they do and a lot of things they say, they don't seem to be looking for the best candidate. People are confused by this. And you're absolutely correct, because they are not looking for the best candidate. That's something they say. What they're looking for is they're looking for the lowest risk candidate. Okay, that's how this process works. That's why, for example, you have to appear to be enthusiastic and passionate about the job, even if it's a crappy job. Because you might have the qualifications, but maybe you didn't pass the sort of attitude test. And they said, this person just doesn't seem like they want the job. Right? Have you ever heard that? Have you ever been rejected for that reason? That perplexes a lot of people, especially younger people, because it's like, look, I'm at the damn job interview. I've taken the trouble to come here and talk to you people and go through this silly, degrading process. Obviously, I want the job. How can you say I don't want the job? Oh, you didn't seem like you wanted the job. Right? Yeah, that explains that. Because if they sense that you're just not really into this, you're looking for any job just to make money, you don't care about doing this, right? That makes you a higher risk employee. The odds of them giving you the job and then you deciding 1 month later, 3 months later, 6 months later that, you know what? I'm not into this. I could do better. And then you leave, right? The odds of that go up, okay? As opposed to the candidate that says, yeah, I'm passionate about this. Like, if you look at my resume, I've done all kinds of work in this area because I like it, because I choose to be in this area. I've volunteered at, this situation, that shows that I legitimately enjoy doing this type of thing. So for that candidate, the odds of them quitting after a month because it's not their bag, right? It's not their deal, are much less. Is this all BS? Of course it is, but that's how they're thinking, okay? That's how anybody thinks, really. I used the example last time about somebody just hiring a friend, paying a friend to help you move your stuff from one apartment to another or whatever. It's like you got two friends. One is super friendly and helpful. The other one is kind of like, whenever you mention this, they kind of like, they turn off. They don't seem to be into it. Right? Or you start hiring strangers. You post a job, you put up a job posting and you get a few strangers that apply for it. And one stranger is like, they just seem not into this at all. Right? Would you hire that person? Would you trust them with your stuff? This is like stuff of sentimental value. It's valuable. Is that a good sign? No, it isn't. Right? So that's how this stuff works. You can't say whether they'll be good or not, but what you can say is the likelihood of them being not great and not working out will be higher. So that's what's going on. They're not looking for the best candidate. They're looking for the lowest risk candidate. That's what recruiters are geared to, because that's what recruitment and selection, that's what that field of study kind of revolves around. Joseph. Hey, Joseph. Joseph says, with the great resignation ongoing comes unconventional way of recruiting by employers. What your thoughts on this and recruiting in the tech space? I thought the great resignation was over. Now it's sort of the great firing as we go into a recession. There's no, I don't know. It's like in the world of HR, nothing is new under the sun. I mean, nothing really changes. Maybe the extremely minor technical details changes. Instead of posting a job, on this website, they're posting a job on that website. Instead of communicating with them by email, now you're communicating with them by text. Details. The principles are exactly the same, and they've been the same since about 1970. All the theory behind it, how they do interviews, how they screen resumes. It's all been the same for years. It doesn't change anytime fast. Really, like in fundamental ways, right? Now, when you say unconventional ways, I don't know of any ways that I would qualify as unconventional. Just slightly different ways. People are moving with the times, moving with the technology. I don't know if that counts as unconventional. Now, the tech space is a special kind of place. Okay? The problem is the tech space can mean almost anything you want it to mean. It goes from, industrial mechanics, right? Working on big equipment to software developers in a startup. You know what I mean? Or there's and everything in between. So it's huge. What I'll say is that generally speaking, people in the tech space, if you are a technical type person, usually your weak spot is interpersonal communication, interacting with other people. There's a lot of people in that space that don't have a lot of great social skills. That's the weakness. The other thing that I find in that space, like any sort of boom or bust kind of space, which the tech space, you could attribute to that. It's not always true, but depending what we're talking about, it's like a boom bust kind of thing. Like you have periods of hiring where everybody's got a job, and then you have periods where like everybody's being laid off, right? It's like a boom bust cycle type industry. What I've seen in that space, I've got a lot of comments and things from people that are developers, people that work in IT, either a systems admin or whatever cloud solution provider, and quite a lot of them, frankly, are just very arrogant and very entitled. And I think it comes from these boom periods where you graduate from school. All your classmates have all got jobs by the time they graduate. Nobody's unemployed for very long. This kind of thing. So you get this attitude that I'm super valuable. I'm super important. My skills are in high demand. And I've had a lot of comments from people where they say things like, I don't need to do any of that interview psychology. I just tell them what money I want, and I tell them how many years experience I have, and they just give me the job. So you're clearly wrong when you say you've got to interview like this. It's like, no, you're just in the middle of a boom cycle. Yeah. Because you're in high demand right now. And then that changes. Then comes the inevitable correction, like we're seeing now. And some of these people, for the first time, they have problems finding a job, and they have problems getting hired. And they're not used to that, and they don't understand what's wrong, and they don't understand where to start. Okay, so, the first thing I would do is I would make sure that you're not one of those people that has that attitude issue. Don't go in there all I don't know if this job is really worth my time. I'll think about it. It's like, don't go in there with that attitude, because unless they have to hire as many people as fast as they can, they will not be hiring you. I don't care how brilliant you are. When you confront someone with that attitude, it's like, nope, life's too short to have to deal with people like that. So that's the deal. Now, the other thing for the Great Resignation, which I thought happened 2 years ago, that was when that kind of started, when a certain global pandemics were at their peak, was, people were just like, they couldn't be pushed any further. And so a lot of people are just quitting. And the other great thing that's coming along with that is what I talk about on Fridays, which is people are not working as employees anymore. You realize you don't have to work, as a slave for somebody else. If you know a bit of business and you have some talent, you can generate your own income. You don't need to work for anybody. And that's what a lot of people were doing. You take a side hustle where you make a little bit of supplemental income every month, and you turn that into a full-time business. Things like this. Thanks to the internet and some of the things that are here, there are alternatives, easy alternatives. than working as an employee. Okay. It does take, you have to know a few things first, right? So, but but they're not hard to learn. Assuming you know them, it may be a possibility. And I always get pushback when I say that. And the example I always come back with is like, look, for example, the most obvious thing in the world, a YouTube channel. There's a lot of people that, went on YouTube and they don't work as employees at companies anymore. They just do YouTube, because they're making a living doing that. I mean, how much money does that take to start? You have an internet connection, you have a phone or a computer, you can get started. You don't make money immediately, but if you've been, slowly building it up over, say, a year, there you go. There's like a cheap, easy, relatively easy alternative. All you need is to have a bit of business sense. And that thing we were talking about earlier about selling yourself in a job interview or otherwise? There's another application where it comes in handy. So yeah, we are not getting a lot of questions. That's why I'm harping on about the same stuff over and over. If you have a question about anything to do with hiring, that's what I'm here for, to answer questions. So type it into the chat box and I will see it. And I will be respectful. Don't worry. I'm not going to shoot you down publicly in front of all these people you don't know, in front of 26 people you don't know. It's very important to be respectful at all times. That's another thing, by the way, that's a very important trait. Okay, I know I kind of harp on recruiters here in this forum, but that's probably I'd like to think that's the only people I really pick on. Joseph. Resignation. Okay, I already did that one. Okay, Tyler K. Tyler K says, thank you for all your help on landing a job offer. I really appreciate it. I thought I would come live to give thanks. Well, thank you for saying so, Tyler, and congratulations. That's a remarkable achievement, and I'm sure that all your hard work has finally paid off. So, way to go. It's a great feeling, isn't it? Number one, the uncertainty is hopefully that feeling of uncertainty of I don't know where this is going. I don't know, I could be hired in a week or I could be still looking in 6 months. I don't know what's going on. I'd like to have some control. That's over. The feeling of having to go on your knees to somebody who doesn't really treat you with respect. A lot of times people will describe the hiring process like that. You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons I pick on recruiters, because a lot of them just don't treat people with respect. It's like, look, you're in a profession where you got to deal with people. Why would you go into that if you don't know how to deal with people or you don't want to deal with people? I just don't get it. Okay, so that's another thing. That process is over. And then finally, you have a purpose in life. You feel like you're contributing. And then you're bringing money in. That's pretty important too. So, way to go. Tyler says, absolutely, recommending your content to everyone I know. Well, thank you very much, Tyler. That's very kind of you. Way to go. Ray says, what are the pros and cons of getting hired by a temp agency as opposed to direct hiring by an employer? Okay, here's the deal. Now, temp jobs, just when you hear that word, it sounds a little derogatory. It sounds like it's not a very desirable job. You're not respected that much, right? Okay. But they do have their places. Okay. Now, the way I would go about, I have gone about hiring, and I would go about hiring, especially for sort of lower level, worker level jobs, is there is no way to quickly get to know someone and really know if they're good. It just, people try in job interviews. It's like a pretense of trying to see inside you. They can't. It's baloney. It's fake. It's an excuse to not get to know someone. It's like a substitute for putting the time in to get to know somebody. So you don't really know if an employee is going to be good or bad until they start and you see firsthand. You engage them and they start working for you. Okay? So here's the thing. What I would love to do it isn't always possible. What I'd love to do is I'd love to hire everybody as a temp in the beginning and go through a probation period of a month, 3 months, max. And then you can see what you're getting. You can see like, okay, this person is good. You can work with them. They're a pleasure to deal with. They always do their work on time. They're always organized. They always have a smile on their face, even when they're a little bit stressed out. I can see that now. Right? And then you hire them permanently. Okay? So a temp job can be, not always, but it can be a stepping stone to a permanent position. Okay? Because if you work as a temp inside an organization, it could be literally a temp job. At the end of the term, you're done. Okay? But what is also quite common is that they also need permanent people. And if they're looking for permanent people and you do have the technical qualifications, guess who's at the top of the list to fill that job? Because you know how we were talking about they want the lowest risk employee, not necessarily the best? Well, you, my friend, are the lowest risk employee because they've already got a taste of what it's like having you as an employee. They know exactly what you're going to be like. Okay? And if it worked out for you and it worked out for them, you're the person they want to hire. So that's probably the biggest advantage of putting yourself in for a temp job. Now, the other advantage is that, because it's only a temp job, they don't really look at you that hard. They don't scrutinize you as much as they would for a permanent position. So if there's something in your past, maybe you've got a work gap, maybe you change careers, maybe, I don't know, you have some kind of disability or, something that you feel is, it's hurting you, some stain on your history or, whatever, as a temp job, they don't look as hard. So you can maybe use that to sort of slip by the screening and get into the company. And, once you're in, you're in. You know what I mean? If you're a good worker and you're friendly and all the rest of it, that thing that was holding you back, that stain, doesn't have an effect because they've seen you. They've got firsthand experience, right? So that's another advantage of the temp job. You can get in a little bit easier, but once you're on the inside, then it's easier to make it a permanent job. And then finally, if you're looking for work experience, it can be an easy way of getting that, okay? For permanent positions, they're looking at you harder. They want someone with a lot of experience, maybe. Maybe you don't have that. But a temp job, it's only a temp job. So that can be the advantage too. It's a quick way to get work experience. Once you get work experience, once you're on the inside, you can get work experience, you can get a reference, you can get a letter of recommendation, and that stuff is really valuable to getting a permanent position somewhere else, if that's what you're going for. Dr. Deckel, would you please speak on finding a mentor? I'm new in the state and a psychologist. Is that psychologist? I need support to get licensed. Thank you, Dorothy. Look, I'm not an expert at finding a mentor, but if I was sort of 20 years younger and I had to do this, I would go to someone that you work with that hasn't, you have a reason to see them occasionally. Maybe the big boss in a building or something. You go to work at a job and you have your boss and then you have the big boss, right? I don't know, someone 2 levels up. And maybe you've seen them around, you've seen them in the lunchroom, you've had a couple of conversations with them. Maybe they know a lot of things that you would like to know. You would like to be in their position, something like that. In several years, you'd like to be promoted into a role like theirs at that level. If you have a little bit of a rapport with them, what I would do, if it were me, is I would try and, how can I say this without sounding slimy? Try and hang out with them if possible. And then I would just say outright, dude, or, whatever, ma'am, can you mentor me? I'm really interested in learning this industry, learning this business. You have a lot of great knowledge and experience, I'm wondering, would that be okay? Like, just, I'll stop by your office, at a time of your convenience, just here and there. Maybe, however you want to do it. I would just love to learn from you. What's the best way to do that? Something like that. I would try that. Okay. Now, if you're talking about like paying somebody, like you're paying an advisor, that's different. But if you're just wanting like a mentor, right? I would do that. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe you see them every day. I would say outright, it's like, can you mentor me? I would like to learn this business. I would like to learn how you make your decisions and get an insight into that. I think, and a little bit of flattery helps, saying like, I'd love to get your expert opinion on this industry and all, as we do this day-to-day job. I realize you can't show me everything, but, I'm interested in learning as much as I can. Would that be okay? I'd really appreciate it. Something like that. Obviously, I'd plan this out a little bit more. And I'm sick and I'm whacked on a medication, so I'm not phrasing it very well, but something like that. Hopefully that helps in some way. Antonio Lopez says, any tips on resumes for people that are trying to switch careers? I feel like I can get nowhere with, rioters looking at recruiters looking at my resume because I've been doing gig work for the last 5 years. Yeah, listen, Antonio, it's not about your resume. If you're not trying to get a job through networking, try it. Add that to the job search campaign that you're doing, okay? Because recruiters, by definition, regard that as a big red flag, okay? Recruiters, they, how can I put this? The number one metric for recruiters in their minds that demonstrates value is years of experience. So the first question they're going to have when you apply for any job is going to be, how many years of experience do you have doing it? And in their minds, more years of experience naturally means you're better at it. Okay? It's a crazy, distorted la land that they live in, but that's how they think. Sometimes it's true. A lot of times it isn't. The problem is that when you're changing careers, by definition, if you're applying for a job and they say, how many years experience, you will say, well, 0, I'm changing careers. So automatically they say, oh, I'm sorry, then you can't be qualified for this. We're looking for someone who knows what they're doing. So that's the problem with changing careers and going through a recruiter. It doesn't work, usually, okay? However, lots and lots of people change careers. It's a constant thing that's going on. The way people do it is they have some kind of networking connection, okay? They don't hire you for the job based on your resume. Instead, they hire you based on what you have just demonstrated to them, okay? For example, if you have a hiring manager, someone who's a manager in a business who has the power to hire employees, okay? And somebody contacts them, somebody outside of their company that they don't know, okay? Like you, and says, look, I'm passionate about this industry and I know a bit about your company. And, it's like, I would love to get, your expert opinion on the industry and where it's going and this kind of stuff, and then could I talk to you? Would you be able to spare me 30 minutes? Maybe you go grab a coffee or something. And they say, sure, it's very flattering. This person is, whoever they are, they seem to be professional. They seem to be competent. They are following protocol, that there aren't any red flags. This person isn't crazy. They're not trying to sell me something. It isn't some con. They're trying to get something from me. They just want to talk to me, ask me a few questions. Seems pretty harmless. And it makes me feel good. It makes me like, wow, somebody actually wants to hear what I think about this thing that I do every day that I'm into, right? It's flattering. Now, a lot of people say no. Some people always say yes. And you go down, you meet them, and you have not a job interview, but an informational interview where you ask them a bunch of questions about their job and about how it works. And what's usually going to happen is they'll say, so what about you? What brings you here? Like, what's your interest? And you say, oh, well, I'm, for the last 10 years, whatever, I've been in this other industry. But I've always had a passion to do this, and work in this new industry, in your industry, in some way. And I just want to learn more about it. I'm just interested in it. And I know that you guys at your company do you're firmly in that industry and you do a great job. You're growing. That's all. Right? Now if you get to that point, okay, you have left it to the point where if that manager was thinking of hiring a new employee, right? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Every once in a while, managers hire new people. People cycle through, people quit, people retire, right? Or new jobs get created, right? And you have the technical skills, albeit in a different industry, but you have the same constituent skills that are required. They say, I might be able to help you out there. It's interesting you say that because we're actually looking for somebody like this. And then, you kind of be like, well, you go away for a while and then you come back, with a message and say, thank you very much for meeting with me. I was thinking about what you were saying. And, do you think it would make sense for me to apply for this? Something like that. And they say like, sure, why not? And then you apply for it. If it's a posted job, you can apply for it. And when you apply, you're not going in from the bottom as an unknown. You're saying, hey, I was just speaking with the manager the other day and they recommended that I put in for this job. So please find my application attached. Or you just talk to the manager and the manager says, well, here, just like, look, okay, I do the job interviews anyway. So if you're interested, send me a resume and we'll do it that way. Right? There's many ways it could go, but that type of thing, that's all networking. You don't have to know a million people. You just be proactive. Because of all the people they could hire, you're the only one that showed up and had the initiative and the passion to reach out to them. And you've demonstrated by a face-to-face meeting how professional you are, how competent you are, how easy to deal with you are. And, they enjoyed talking to you. And they enjoyed talking to you because you asked them questions about what they do and you were interested in the answers. That makes people feel great. How often does that happen to you in your life? And someone says, you know what? I think you're great at what you do. I would love to hear your opinion on how you do your job and how it should be done. Does that happen to you very often? No. So when it happens to people, they tend to respond very favorably to that. So I'm just giving you a taste. There's many ways of getting a job through networking. That's just like one possibility. Okay. I've done a few videos on this if you are interested in learning about that. Probably a good starting point is a video I've done called, what was it called? How Successful People Get Jobs. It's not a very popular video. It only has like 5,000 views or something weird like that. But that is what I believe to be like the sort of, probably the biggest crash course in this method of getting a job. And it's especially good for introverts trying to do this, because you can do it all remotely. Anyway, okay, that's the end of my soapbox speech. So hopefully that makes sense, Antonio. It's not about the resume. It's about reaching out through different channels, not recruiters. Amanda, haha. That's awesome. Hi, sir. I am an international student, graduated with an engineering degree. That's awesome. An engineering degree with an engineer or engineering training with a sense of humor. That's awesome. The world needs more of those. I'm now in my first job for 2 months, but it is a small firm. So I'm now getting an interview from Bosch. Could you help me? How to present myself in the interview. Listen, Amanda, haha. Listen, the way to get good at interviews is, first of all, do some research on your own, learn common answers to common questions, okay? Then when you feel you're pretty comfortable knowing how to answer all the standard questions, okay? Then do mock interviews, pretend interviews. Get a friend or a family member to help you. Just go to them and say, like, look, can you just do some pretend job interviews with me. Like, just ask me some of these questions. Ask me some questions or give them a list of questions. Could you ask me these questions? Right? And let's do this like a real job interview, because I'm trying to refine my interviewing skills. Okay? And keep doing that. It's going to feel weird. You're going to feel a little bit nervous. That's good, because that's simulating an actual job interview, right? You're working under those conditions now. And, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the added benefit is that they can give you feedback and say, like, look, as far as I can tell, you did okay, but, you really want to make more eye contact, or you really want to stop playing with your hands, or, that kind of stuff, right? They can give you some feedback. So you do that, okay? And you do it a lot. And then after, say, a couple of weeks doing mock interviews, like several a day, you will feel comfortable, you'll feel confident. And then when you go to real interviews, you'll make a much better impression, okay? Be friendly, be personable. It seems from your name you got a sense of humor. That's great. Don't be fooled into thinking like, oh, it's so formal that I can't crack a smile or, say anything light, to have a rapport with people. No. People like friendly people. People like people who are fun to deal with and interact with. They're friendly, they're happy, they got a smile, they don't get offended, they don't get upset, they don't, right? So just work on it. Work in that order, okay? On your own, do research, then do mock interviews, then go to real interviews. You'll be a pro. Like anything else, practice makes perfect. Okay? And learn the basics of protocol. Like, for example, when you get into a room with an interviewer, do you shake hands? Like, what do you do? What do you say when you first meet them? You say, like, it's very nice to meet you, right? Things like this. I mean, look, I don't know after COVID if we still shake hands, or some people do, some people don't, whatever. But, things like that, just what to say, what to do, just learn all that stuff, right? You can look it up on the internet and you can practice, and you can observe, like look at, I don't know if it's possible for you, but look at people in higher positions, how they interact with each other, how they greet each other, how they talk to each other, things like this. I mean, that can be a good start. I'm not a good example because I'm not a great speaker. Some people move to the executive level because they have the $1 million smile and the beautiful speaking voice, that's not me. Dr. Deckel says, thank you so much. That is very helpful. Have a lovely day, Dorothy. Not a problem, Dorothy. Hopefully that was of at least some use. Bazcon. There we go. I like that name. Bazcon. Had a couple of interviews currently, and the interviewers are really impressed about my achievements and my experience and all, but can't figure out why they end up asking something that isn't actually required for the job, which I don't have. Feel like they don't need to hire me. There could be a couple of reasons for that. The most obvious reason is that they're idiots, because we do see that. You see, if they're recruiters don't actually work in the job that they're hiring for. They usually, unfortunately, don't know the first thing about it. So some of your qualifications, they might not even know what the hell that is. That's actually more common than a lot of people realize. So they're just unaware that what they're asking, like this qualification, is not what they think it is, right? They think it's related to the job, but it isn't. So it could be that. That would be my first guess. Okay. Another reason why they could ask that, they could knowingly be asking you about something that, is say inappropriate in the sense that it's not related to the job. What do you mean you don't have public speaking skills? You're interviewing somebody for like a receptionist or something like that. and it wasn't on the job posting, you need to have public speaking skills because you'll be addressing a workforce or something. The thing to do is not say, really? Like, what do you mean you need that? That doesn't make any sense. No, I don't have that. You could first, the method behind it, their motivation is they could be trying to make you sweat because they know it's not a reasonable question. They know you don't have it. You've given your resume. Now, anybody that's semi-competent would be at least somewhat familiar with your resume before they call you into an interview. That's usually what we see. So they know that you don't have these skills or they haven't seen any sign of them. Yet, they brought you in for an interview. The only people they bring in for interviews are people that technically, according to their resume, are qualified. So if this thing that they're asking you about is some kind of showstopper, they're pretending it's a showstopper. They're saying, oh, well, if you don't have this, that looks really bad. It's like, well, you already knew that I didn't have that when you brought me in. You didn't see any sign of that on my resume, yet you still brought me in for this, right? So once again, we return to the fact that they know that that's not required, right? They want to see how you react to that. Okay. Now, what to respond is going to depend on what they're asking you about. If they ask you something completely off the wall, you say like, well, I've never really needed that before in all my previous work in this role, Or if it's something that, you can kind of fake, like public speaking skills, maybe you're not a great public speaker, but if your job depended on it, you could do it and you could learn it relatively quickly. You feel that that's within your capability. You say, yeah, my public skills are adequate. I don't get a chance to practice them very often, but they're there. I have done it. And if I was called upon to do it, it wouldn't be an issue. You see, you want to ease their mind. They're throwing up like question marks, possible red flags, and you want to reassure them that like, no, that's not going to be a problem. Okay? One way or another. So depending on what they're asking you and whether you have that or not, or at least know what it is. If you're highly trainable, if this happened to me, and they asked me like, what was it? Tell me about your skills in this area in plumbing. Do you have adequate plumbing skills? Talk to me about your experience plumbing. And I would say something like, well, I don't have a ton of experience at it, but I have done it and, or I know about it. And I mean, I'm highly trainable. I'm often called upon to learn certain technical skills in order to do my job. As a project manager or whatever, you have to learn different skills on demand. And, if I was called upon to do a lot of plumbing, I have done similar things in the past and it wouldn't be an issue. And then it's up to you. You could follow up with, you could end with a question back at them and saying like, is that a major requirement for this job? Will this job involve a lot of plumbing on a regular basis? Something like that, right? And you could end off with that and see what they say. Hopefully that helps. But that's a great question, Bascon. But once again, I'd like to reiterate, if I had to guess, and this was for an employee level job, I suspect it's more, they're asking the question more out of ignorance than they are out of any calculated thing where they know that what they're asking is not required. Amanda says, they invited me to an on-site interview, which they will make a decision based on that. But I have only a degree and not much practical experience. I'm worried they will not hire me because of that. Listen, a couple of things here, Amanda. First of all, depending on the employer, they look for all kinds, okay? And some employers look for reasonable things, other employees look for unreasonable things. And some employers have taken the attitude that, oh, if you don't have any practical experience, you have no clue what you're doing. How could you possibly be qualified? Other recruiters, they realize that, like, okay, or other employers, I should say, they realize that, education is what it is. You're trained to do something and you are qualified. It'll be an entry-level position at, whatever profession you're in, but yeah, you're perfectly qualified for an entry-level position. Right? And it just comes down to the values of that organization. Okay. Now, if you had to sort of justify yourself in an interview and they said, like, I don't see a lot of practical experience on your resume. This job requires someone who has like practical experience. Can you speak to that? If you have no practical experience whatsoever, the fallback answer would be something like, look, well, in getting my degree or whatever you have, your educational qualification, I've had to complete projects under deadlines. I've had to work and collaborate with other people. I've had to sort of figure out what requirements are, what expectations are. Even when they're not explicitly stated, I'd have to go and source out that information and incorporate it into my work. I'd have to be disciplined to do it on time. I'd have to do it as per the requirements, and I'd have to turn it in by the deadline and meet all their expectations. So I have quite a lot of experience doing all of that, right? Also interacting with the instructors or the professors and figuring out what their expectations are and being able to deliver to them something that meets their expectations. I have a lot of experience doing that, in the course of getting this qualification. So that's the experience that I can bring to this job. Like a lot of things that you do on the job, if you break it down to its constituent skills, like collaboration, like being organized, like having a good work ethic, like meeting deadlines, like figuring something out that you don't know how to do, getting answers, okay? Doing the work yourself, being disciplined to manage your time effectively, to complete projects. If you look at like all those constituent skills, to follow instructions, right? Those are all present when you're in school in some way, shape, or form, right? So if you're worried about like, oh no, you don't have any work experience, okay, you can always come back to them with this stuff and say like, look, this is what I have. And once they hear like all these things that you have, that are basically what you're going to be doing in the job, you're going to be receiving instructions, you're going to be figuring out expectations, you're going to be staying organized, having a good work ethic, following rules, being disciplined, collaborating with others, resolving conflicts with others that you have to work with, and completing work on time as per instructions. When you think about it, hello, that's what you do in a job. So, you could maybe, talk about that. Hopefully that helps. Amanda says, thank you. You spotted I'm a bit funny. It's good. Hey, it's good to have a sense of humor. Okay. I've worked with some completely humorless people in my time. And let me tell you, it is, you feel like you need to be paid extra to deal with them. You know what I'm saying? You want to work with someone who's a pleasure to deal with. This is the key to a lot of higher level social skills. When you have to interact with somebody, when you go up to somebody, okay? What that person should do is make you feel like you're the most important person to them. You matter most. They're happy to see you. They give you their full attention. And it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to interact with them. As opposed to, and everybody knows this, a coworker that is the opposite of that. You think, oh God, I got to deal with this person. Oh, and then, you get stressed and then you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with that person, right? That's not good. Usually good things don't follow if that's the effect you have on everyone around you. what you want is everyone to think, oh, great, I get to deal with this person. I like them. They're awesome, right? So if you put that out there and you deal with people like that, good things tend to happen to you. Those are the people that get the promotions. Those are the people that get picked for things because people want to work with them. Right? Maybe they're not the smartest or the tallest or the best looking. Maybe they don't have the most years experience. Maybe they don't have the fanciest university degrees. But that doesn't matter because people want to work with them. That's how things work out in the real world when you're dealing with humans. Where am I here? Oh, I got to the end of the stream. Cool. Well, there's still 26 of you guys here. This is anyone's opportunity to ask questions. So let me know. If you don't get tired of my interminable waffling, talking about everything and nothing. This is what I do for fun. It's kind of sad. Yeah. So, yes, I had a note here that came up last time. I was talking about people being exploited. A lot of people are exploited. You're exploited in your job, especially if you're at the worker level. Especially if you don't really understand business. You don't understand how business works or what it is or why it exists, what its goal is, things like this. The more you know about that stuff, the further you'll go. The more you'll be able to succeed in your job by knowing what the company cares about, knowing what your boss cares about, things like that. Number one. And number two, if you want to go outside of just working a traditional job, you will do really well. You'll understand these things. That's how these things go. Amanda says, thank you so much, or thanks so much. You're absolutely welcome, Amanda. Thank you for your intelligent question. So, yeah, I'm just waiting for any other questions people might have. If you guys don't ask anything, I've got really nothing to say, and you don't want to hear me talking off the top of my head. Yvonne says, good point, Bill. Always good information. Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne. Very kind of you to say that. Makes me feel good. You see, that's an example. That's an example of what I was talking about a second ago, right? How often do you go up to somebody that you work with every day or you see every day, and say to them, just unprompted, you say, you know what? This thing that you do, I got to tell you, you do a great job. Not everybody does that like you do it. They don't take the trouble to do it as well as you do. And, but you do. And I appreciate it. It makes my life a lot easier. So way to go. Don't ever stop. How often do you go up and do that to somebody? How often does someone go and come up to you and say that? Not very often, right? But when that does happen, how do we feel? We feel like $1 million. We feel like, oh, well, thank you very much. I try and do my best, and it's my pleasure, right? You spread that positivity. Now, okay, this is good on it's good on a humanistic level, but it's also good in a very sort of selfish capitalistic kind of way, because people tend to like you when you do that. They tend to think, that guy or that gal is awesome. I want to work with them. I want to hire them. I got to promote somebody. I'd like to promote somebody to work with me who's like that. Not someone that's like a great streak of misery, always finding fault with everything. Right? I want that kind of person around. Right? They make me feel good. So, is this flattery? Well, some people would say yes, some people would say no. To me, flattery is where you make something up that isn't true and say something nice about, oh, that's a handsome tie you're working, Mr. God. That's a handsome tie you're wearing today, Mr. Boss Man. Right? Like you don't really think their tie is good. You're just saying that to ingratiate yourself. You're being sycophantic, obsequious, right? It's like, that is not genuine. That's disingenuous. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, think of something that they do that you honestly think is great, and then tell them that. Okay, that's the difference. We're not being slimy. We're not being, disingenuous. We're spreading positivity. If someone did something that like genuinely helped you, tell them that. Say like, hey, that really helped me out when you say that. It's great that you do that, because that really helped me. Thank you so much. And people go like, oh, well, I'm glad you appreciate it. They feel good. They feel good about themselves, right? And this is good in itself. It's also good in a very selfish way because people like you when you say that stuff, right? I know we don't always feel like that. And trust me, I know when you don't feel like complimenting somebody because that maybe that one good thing they do, they've done 50 bad things that piss you off, right? But this can go a long way. It's surprising and sickening at the same time how far this can take you. That kind of thing. If you're a technical person and you're working in a place and people keep getting promoted that are not you and you don't understand what's going on there, people then go, okay, I see. There's nepotism. There's corruption. They're just, it's like you make up a reason because you don't know the reason. You can't figure it out. So you assume it must be something bad. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's stuff like this. Okay. Now imagine if you did that to a hiring manager out of the blue, like what I was saying earlier, getting a job through networking. And you do that to a hiring manager who doesn't know you. That kind of thing. They may be able to offer you a job. And a lot of times they'll offer you a job based on the fact that, first of all, you seem to have the technical chops. But more than that, you make them feel awesome. And I'm not making this up, though. I mean, I was standing next to, this is like 15 years ago, I was standing next to my boss, who was the CEO of a company. And I was a project manager. I was working in the capacity of a project manager. I brought in some contractors to do some work in our office, to like renovate the office and everything. And so they had these contractors working in the same office as the owner of the company and the CEO and me. And the CEO turned to me and said, like, who's that guy over there? And I said, I think that's, Jeff, whatever, one of the contractors. He's like, we should offer him a job. And I said, why? And it was because he was so friendly and he had very good social skills. He's a very good communicator, very friendly, very personable. He had been, doing some work. I think he was replacing windows or something right where the CEO was. Like, it's not their office or their outer office. And I guess he was interacting with the CEO. And, the guy comes up to me and says, like, let's offer, like, do we need anyone? Like, get that guy, So, I mean, this isn't just coming from me. I mean, I've witnessed a lot of this too, as well as done. I built a business around doing this kind of thing, doing informational interviews specifically. Okay. Born Jason. So like not Jason Bourne, but Born Jason. Okay. Gotcha. I'm a senior engineer and been passed for promotion several times. What's your suggestion for me? Thanks. Well, first of all, I'd like to try and find out what the reason is. Sometimes it's possible to do that. Sometimes it isn't. If you know that there's a promotion coming up and you go to your boss that you work with, or another boss who's also a decision maker in the process, and say like, look, like I understand that there's this promotion opportunity. You're trying to get someone to fill this position. Just look, out of curiosity, what are you looking for? Like what are the things that are important to you? Just curious. You can do that if you do it in a polite way, a professional way, and you follow protocol. You can do that. And a lot of times they'll tell you certainly some things. They might not tell you absolutely everything, but they'll tell you some stuff. So that can help. Now, it doesn't always guarantee that what they're telling you is true, but it can help sometimes. But just as a blanket response, I would say improve your social skills. Improve your collaboration skills. Because, you need technical skills. That's important, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure you're technically qualified to be in that position you're referring to. Okay, that's not what's holding you back. I'd be amazed if it was. Okay, what's much more likely is that they're looking for somebody that they can collaborate with, communicate with, and they have a better experience. Okay, that's usually how this stuff goes. Being likable, being great at collaborating, all those soft skills. Now, you're a senior engineer, okay? I'm not a senior engineer. I have a degree in engineering, and I've worked with a lot of engineers. And I'm just playing the odds here, but a lot of engineers, they really, they don't consider these skills real or important. B, because they trivialize them, they don't develop them or place any importance on them. And that's what holds them back. So tune into that stuff, because what makes you want to pick someone to work with you? Sure, technical skills are a part of it, but the higher we go in an organization, as you get more towards the executive function, it's less and less about technical skills. It's more and more about people, okay? So develop your people skills. Try to be likable. Be as likable as you possibly can. Be the person that everyone wants to work with. And if that's who you are, usually things like promotions and stuff like that follow. Okay? It could also be that, maybe it's that particular employer and that culture and those individuals. It's just, they could be biased against you. They could have, their expectations could be out to lunch. They could be looking for silly things. An example I've used many times is I've seen the hiring manager not hire candidates because the candidate was rooting for a different sports team than the hiring manager. I've said that famously as an example. I have actually seen that. That's an example of people looking for stupid things. And if you don't measure up, you kind of then get this sort of inferiority complex and going, oh, I'm no good. No, it's just that their expectations were silly. It's almost like a compliment not measuring up to them sometimes. So you never know, you never will know exactly what's going on. But if you're super likable and there's nothing mechanical like holding you back, like years of experience or seniority or whatever, or you're missing a critical piece of education, work on your social skills and your people skills. Okay. That's what I would say. And just as an aside, if you don't know if it could be a technical requirement, like for example, they don't want to promote anyone into this position until they've had 15 years experience with the company. Maybe there's something like that. Okay. How do you discover what the technical requirements might be, especially if they don't want to tell you explicitly? Get on LinkedIn, look at people, do a people search for, the position that you're going for in your region, in your industry. Okay. Do like that search with those filters. You might have to jump through a couple of hoops, but do that search and look at all the profiles that show up, all these people. You're essentially looking at all their resumes. If they all have 15 years experience, that tends to suggest that that's kind of required. Maybe not officially, but in practical terms, they require that. If they all have a certain educational qualification, that tends to suggest that that's essentially required. Okay. Right. So that's how you can get a feel for that kind of stuff. Hopefully that helps. Born Jason. Ayush Lal says, "Hi, Bill. It's been quite some time since I last watched your videos due to my busy work schedule." That's okay. It's quite a while since I answered one of your questions. In one of my dream companies, due to my busy work schedule in one of my dream companies, and you are one of the people responsible for me being there. Thanks, man. Oh, great. Thank you, Lal. I'm glad that worked out. Congratulations. And hopefully you thrive and prosper at that position and good things follow. And thank you for saying so. Van Link 1. None of those other pesky Van Links. "Hello, it's the first time I'm watching your live sessions, but I've been a subscriber for a while now. My question is, how much do you think should it matter finding a job that you like enough?" Well, here's my understanding of how jobs work out for most people. Sometimes the nature of your work just sucks. The actual work itself. Like if I had to work in a chicken rendering plant, where you have to kill chickens or chop them up or whatever, personally, that would get me down, But what's far more common is people tend to not like jobs, not because of the nature of the work they do. It's because of the people. Usually the boss, but also coworkers, other people you might encounter. If you work in customer service, you're dealing with angry customers all day, So the thing is, like, look, whenever you get a job, you have to jump. Now, no matter how you get the job, if you're applying for it through standard channels or if you're getting it through networking or anything like that, it's a leap of faith. You just sign on and hope for the best. If you then discover that you're in this hostile environment where, people are disrespectful, people bully you, the work conditions are physically very harsh. It's a health hazard. It's work is physically demanding. It's pushing you right to your limit, and you don't know how long you can sustain it. Unfortunately, that's a probability, right? You try and make the best educated guess you can before you jump, but unfortunately, that does happen. But what's far more common is it doesn't matter what you do. If you work with awesome people that think you're fantastic and they're wonderful to deal with, it kind of doesn't matter too much what you do as long as that's in place, right? Okay, so how much do you think it should matter finding a job that you like enough? Well, my point is that you can't really tell if you're going to like the job until you get into the job. That's the thing. So I would say that, it's hard to answer. It's like if you just don't like doing a certain thing, then that's probably a good indication right there. It's common sense. However, if you're open to doing it, it depends on the people more than the activity. So that's what I would say. You just have to sort of take a leap of faith. Now, if it's a big concern for you, have a fallback option, have a plan B, right? Take the job and, maybe you have other interviews lined up at the same time. So if this job doesn't work out, either you have another offer on the table somewhere else, or you at least have like a bunch of interviews lined up. You know what I mean? So you have something there, or you take a leave of absence from where you're working and maybe try and swing something that way. I don't know if that's possible, but it's possible to sometimes swing something like that. If it's like a real concern, but usually this isn't too much of a concern. That's all I can really say about that. Hopefully that might have helped. I'm not sure, but thanks for the question, Van Link. Oh, okay. I see that your question continues. Or should I stay in a job I don't like that much because it pays the bills? Well, look, probably if it pays the bills and that's like an absolute necessity, then there's your answer. I mean, you know what I mean? If you're limited by that, you have to have a certain income every month. And if you do something to jeopardize the income coming in, you're unwilling to accept that because of your situation, then you have to find a way around it, right? I wouldn't jump into something that has a high likelihood that it might not work out, right? As far as you can tell. Like there's all kinds of red flags and you just ignore them, right? So that's all I can really say on that. It depends on what your life situation is and what the details are. It's hard to give a specific answer. Yvonne says, smiley face. I mean, how smiley are we talking about here? It's like, it's sort of like a grin, like a, you know. I've seen some pretty extreme smiley faces, the people, like scary smiley faces, like that. And that's no good. That just freaks people out. Next time you do a headshot, don't make that face. Things won't work out in your favor. You might be fired the next week and can't figure out why, for example. Yeah. So we're about an hour and a half into this, and we got 29 people here. You guys are awesome for being here. It's great that so many people are here. If anyone has any questions, please ask them now. If there's a big delay, I guess we'll just wrap it up. And I'll just take a moment to do a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, I've thanked my channel members are there. I also want to thank my Patreons. People support me on Patreon, which is great. And these live streams, I got some comments for saying, people, I can't find your live streams. Yeah, because they're not on this channel. They're on, God, this is hard to do when your screen's backwards. This channel, The Company's Expert 2, that's where the live streams are. So if you're looking for past live streams, that's where they are. Go to YouTube, type in The Company's Expert 2, and it takes you right to that channel. Also, if you are in a couple of different situations and need a little help, I have some resources if you want to go deep. Okay, the first scenario is you need to get hired. You've been doing a job search. It's not really going anywhere fast. You're kind of confused. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to discover job opportunities. You don't know how to put yourself up for them, or you don't know how to overcome a weakness, possibly like a work gap, something like that. Obviously, I've got free videos on my channel. A lot of people have stuff on YouTube, but if you really want to go deep, okay, from beginning to end, this is how you do it. Okay, I have my Get Hired course right here, and there's a link in the description. I even did a video where I sort of do Q&A on how the course works. So you should get a pretty good idea of how it works before you sign up for something. So this is good for young people, people new to the whole like job search thing. It's also good for people that maybe you've been applying for jobs through standard channels. You've been looking for jobs online, responding to job ads with applications and resumes, but that hasn't really borne fruit. It hasn't really produced anything. You want to learn networking. You want to learn some alternative methods of getting a job that usually are far more effective. Okay. Also, there's a lot of that in this course too. So if that strikes a chord with any of you guys, no pressure, but I did create that resource if people want to really go deep. The other situation is if you want to learn business for the purposes of perhaps starting your own side hustle, starting your own business on the side, maybe something on the side at first that you could potentially turn into a full-time thing. You don't have to work for somebody else. You can work for yourself, do it entirely on your own terms. You can actually bring some creativity to the work you do and get a sense of accomplishment and value as having created money from nothing, right? Created value. If that's something you're interested in, not everybody is. It's not for everyone. A lot of people are perfectly happy being employees for their entire life. And if you work in certain industries, that's certainly how it goes, more for some industries than others. But if you have a bit of an entrepreneurial flair, you'd like to one day have your own sort of setup, where you don't have to leave your house or you don't have to work for some jackass that gets on your nerves and, doesn't pay you much money. If you're interested in that kind of thing, I have this other course, okay, the $100 MBA I created it for people who want to learn business and not sort of coffee table book business, actual business, okay, the stuff that actually helps you understand, how to make money in its various forms. So that's what that is. So check it out if you're interested. I also have a video where I do a Q&A on that course, so you really have a good picture of what you're getting into, how it works, what you get, all that stuff. If that's of any interest, check out the links in the description box below. And we had a few more questions here. Amanda, haha, I'm in the situation with VanLink 1. Current job is not teaching me much, and traffic is 1 hour back and forth, but pays the bill. Okay, yeah. Yes, I mean, I'm biased towards my beliefs. My beliefs are that, people should aspire to work for themselves, okay? If your career is not going anywhere fast, if you're working at the sort of worker level and it's tough and it's a grind and you're not going to make your first million doing that and you hope for something better, especially if you have education or you have aspirations or ambitions, okay? Investigating doing entrepreneurship is something I encourage. I think it's great. You can't do it in the way that they portray it sometimes in the media, where you take these huge financial risks and bet the farm on this thing working. It's no, that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about trying something, bringing your creativity and talent to something that could help somebody else. Therefore, it's of value. Therefore, you can make money with it, and doing it in a carefully controlled way on the side to validate it, and then maybe taking it to the next level gradually without requiring any real money. It's just your time you risk being wasted. And, you can turn it into something fantastic, potentially. But you need to understand business. And I'll just say this, just bear with me a second here. It's this is something that a lot of people don't understand. If you have a hobby or a passion, like a talent, maybe you do something artistic or creative, I don't know, you paint pictures or whatever, you do sculpting, I don't know. It's purely an artistic effort, right? But the moment you try and make money with it, now you're in the world of business. As soon as there's money involved, it's a business, okay? So in order to succeed at that, making money with it, that's where you need to know business, because that's what business is, okay? It's delivering value and making money, creating wealth, okay? That's what business is. So that's why I created that course. It's just so here's all the material for $100. It's the greatest bang for the buck. You're basically using the same textbooks that they use in places like Harvard in their Masters of Business Administration programs. You're using the same books, and it's a self-study thing. You read it at your convenience, on your own time, on your own schedule. There's no exams, there's no tests, there's no assignments, but you get the material. And if you're passionate about learning this, it'll be like gold for you. If you're not into that, you don't care about that stuff, then it doesn't make any sense. But that's what it is. It's like a sort of cheap way of getting that knowledge, but nobody's going to teach it to you. I provide some videos where I give overviews of the topics and some insight from my professional life. But beyond that, it's up to you to read the material. It's really not that hard. It just takes a bit of a commitment to do it, because it's how long does it take to read 5 books? It takes a little bit. Okay, so that's why I created that. That's all I'll say about it. Yeah. So Amanda, if you're just starting out, then maybe now's not the right time to think about the stuff I just mentioned. But, if you're interested and you want to if you're a very creative, very ambitious type person, yeah, this is the technical skill to help you make money off the thing you want to do. Philip says, hey, your videos really helped me with my management consulting interviews. Just wanted to say thanks. You're absolutely welcome, Philip. I'm glad that was useful. And it's very kind of you to say that. Makes me feel really good, and I wish you all the best. Vina Nair says, I'm looking to move countries and a career shift, rather a slight career upgrade. The hiring practices are very different at the location I want to be. Is it best to network directly or recruiters? I would do both. Like, there's nothing stopping you from doing both. Apply for jobs through standard channels if that's what you want to do. Okay. It certainly doesn't hurt anything. Okay. But in addition to that, I would also try and get a job through networking. You know, nobody mentions this on how to get a job channels, right? Because how to get a job channels are usually done by recruiters. So it's a conflict of interest for a recruiter to say, you don't need a recruiter to get a job, right? But more people, of all the people who have jobs, more people get hired by networking than through any other way, including standard channels, right? The whole like apply for a job, you know, respond to a job ad with a job application. That's actually not the most common way people get jobs. A lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people give you an argument on it. It's true. Don't take my word for it. Go look it up. Do your research. Now, in certain industries where it's very formal, and certainly in large organizations at the worker level, yes, you mainly get it through standard channels. But the higher levels of big organizations and every other size company, small business, medium-sized business, it's networking. And where I am in Canada, 85% of people don't work. 85% of people who have jobs don't work in large companies, in big enterprise. They work in small companies. It's a very similar statistic with the United States. The vast majority of people who have jobs are not working in large organizations like a multinational corporations, this kind of thing. It's deceptive because they're the ones that, you know, you see most often, right? But chances are in your city, you know, you'll have like a downtown area. You have big skyscrapers, you know, big buildings, lots of big businesses there. You know, they like to put up big signs and advertise that, you know, this is this company. But how many times have you driven through the industrial parks? Most cities have giant industrial parks away from the residential areas. And those industrial parks are full of small and medium-sized businesses. They're kind of hidden away, right? But if you look at a map of your city, there'll be these huge quadrants of the city that are like industrial parks. They're all employers, and they're all, you know, usually smaller businesses. Usually they're not serving the public. Their customers are other businesses, right? But there's all those jobs there, right? That's where most people are working. Where did I leave off here? So to get back to your question there, Vina, nothing stopping you from applying to recruiters, okay? But a huge component of any job search campaign, if you want to really do this properly, is going to be, like, as you put, network directly, okay? Reaching out to companies, saying, hey, I'm here. I have these skills. I solve this problem. I'm great at this. I'd love to work with you guys because I know you do this work. If ever you're looking for someone that, you know, in this role, or, you know, that has those skills, please let me know. Thank you. Have a great day. Right? You blast that out to, like, you know, hundreds of companies. You know, you won't get a response from most of them, but you will get a response from a few. They just happen to be looking for somebody with your skills right now, and you just landed right in their lap. Right? So they're interested. Right? And you don't contact the company, you contact the managers within the company. That's why LinkedIn is such a great tool. So check out that video I did that walks you through the basics of that, called How Successful People Get Jobs. Do a search on YouTube for The Company's Expert, How Successful People Get Jobs. I walk you, you see my screen and I'm showing you, this is how you do this, right? I'm stepping you through it. That's like the easiest, most basic sort of version of networking. You do it from your own home. You don't need to know anyone. You don't need to get on the phone with anyone. There you go. Okay, so do all of that, Vina. Nothing stopping you from doing all of it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Try a couple of different methods. Julio, is that how you say it? Julio Morado. Not a question, but I just wanted to say I really appreciate your videos. Thank you. Thank you. Julio. Me and Julio down by the schoolyard. That sort of thing. That's very kind of you. I'm very flattered by all the positive comments that are being thrown my way today. I should get sick more often and do this more often, if that's what I have to look forward to. Thank you. Yvonne, thank you. I hope you feel better soon. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will. I'm surrounded by sick people, and it caught up with me. So, but yeah, if you are ambitious, if you want to, somebody asked earlier, if you want, how do you get this promotion? This is one thing. Don't be sick a lot, like any more than you can help. I know that's kind of a disappointment to some people, but like, show that you're dependable. Don't have like someone tell the boss, oh, that person just called in sick. And they're like, oh, not again. They can remember the last time. They know that they've heard that many times before, It's like if you're trying to show that they can rely on you, unfortunately, that doesn't help, right? So, I mean, trust me, look, I totally understand. If you're in a crappy job and your job sucks and you're looking for any excuse not to show up and you've got X amount of sick days per year or whatever, it's like, and you want to use them up, hey, I get it. I'm just saying, for people that are really gunning for like a specific promotion or something, like that year before they make a decision and promote somebody and you're a contender, try not to be off sick any more than you can help. That's usually what executives do. Vice presidents, executive. When you get to that level, it's like, unless you're completely incapacitated, like you need to be in a hospital bed, you're there. And the way they do it is they medicate themselves. I'm not advising people to do this. I'm just saying that's what I observed a lot of people do in my earlier career. That's what I sort of picked up. It's like they make cold medicine. They make things so that you can suppress symptoms and then do the things you have to do. If you're a teacher or you're some kind of like mission critical type thing, yeah, that comes with the territory. You need to be familiar with that stuff and use those to your advantage as much as is healthy and safe. Amanda Haha, I love that name. I have a passion to do business, but I've been here in the USA for a year. I want to know how to get to that goal. I have no one to teach me or mentor me. Could you be able to help? Well, listen, okay. I do a live stream every Friday called Beyond Employment. Okay, it's really late on Friday. It's actually like early Saturday morning. Okay, that's when it's live. After it's live, it gets posted on my second YouTube channel, right there, The Company's Expert 2. So you can go and you can watch those. And the topic is kind of, it seems, what you're looking for exactly. It's like, how do I get into business? How do I start a business? It's like, I talk about that. I have advised startup founders. I have advised small businesses. I have advised medium-sized businesses in terms of like management consulting, and helping to steer the business a little, how to make money, how to do growth, right? I've done all that stuff for years. I'm also passionate about it. That's what I'm doing now. I haven't had a job, like a job for 10 years, nearly 10 years. I've just been making money on my own. And that's why I'm a former CEO, because I'm never going back. I'm never going back to doing that. That's like the hardest job I've ever had and the most stressful job I've ever had. And quite frankly, I'll admit it, I couldn't really do it long term. It would kill me. So I make money on my own. And YouTube is one of the things I do. And these are all revenue streams. And, I built a consulting business on my own doing the whole networking thing, right? Informational interviews, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's like, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, it's a great thing to improve yourself, in my opinion. The more you understand about money, the more successful you tend to be in making money and holding on to it. So, yeah, it's a great thing to know. So check out those. I used to do entrepreneurial videos on this channel, but I don't do them anymore because they wouldn't really get a lot of views. I do videos on how to get a job. They get like this many views, right? This many views. And then I do an entrepreneurial video and it would get like that many views. So I stopped doing them, which sucks because I love to talk about that stuff. So check that out. Vina says, thank you. You're absolutely welcome, Vina. Michelle, I declined to additional interviews for a role because it was not a fit. I mentioned another role with the HR that I was interested in. Was this appropriate? Okay, so I don't fully understand what you're saying. So you went to an interview with a recruiter and said you're not interested in the role that they pulled you in for, but you are interested in this other job position that they're hiring for. Is that appropriate? That's my understanding of what you're asking. Maybe I misinterpreted that. Okay, presumably they thought you were a fit, but you didn't think you were a fit. Something like that. Okay. Was this appropriate? Look, all I'll say is that people don't like being told no. We all hate being told no. We also hate being told you're wrong, right? We get angry, we get emotional, we get hostile. Every single one of us on some level. We don't like being told no. We don't like being told you're wrong. Okay? We react badly to that. It does not ingratiate a person to say you're wrong. I was am a technical person. When I started out in my 20s, I was honest. I figured, look, I'm going to give it to you straight. If you want to know what I think of this or what we should do, I'm not helping you by lying to you and just saying, oh yeah, that's perfect when it's a piece of crap. I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm going to say, no, this is not good. The only way we can improve something is if we admit that it's got flaws, and then we can stand a chance of fixing them, right? That was my attitude. Now, that's correct. But what I was missing was that when you say no to somebody or you say, no, you're wrong, that instantly turns the person off. They are no longer receptive to you. You are now their enemy on some weird level. They're not listening to you. They're not considering what you say. Now they're just upset. It's like a little voice in their mind says, so you're against me. Okay, so I'm going to discount everything you say from this point onward, And if we're not careful, and that's why delivering bad news or saying no or saying you're wrong, it takes advanced, interpersonal skills to be able to do that effectively. So that you don't piss the other person off and they don't take offense to it and they still want to work with you and they see it your way. It's a real challenge. You got to really know what you're doing there. Most people don't. And it shows, right? Okay. So I said that to say this. If you tell a recruiter like, no, you called me in for this job, but I'm not really suited for that job, or, you're wrong. I'm not a fit for it. Something like that, you're not going to get a good response usually from that. Okay. I mean, there's always exceptions, but usually the recruiter is not having warm, fuzzy feelings towards you at that point. Okay. Either you're reminding them that they made a mistake or you're challenging them on something and they don't like that. So if if what you did is the right call and it's the right answer, of course it's appropriate. But if you're then expecting them to warm to you and pick you out of a bunch of people, it might be a greater challenge after you've said things like this, depending on the details of the situation. So hopefully that helps. TQ says, Total Quality says, hi, Bill. When networking through LinkedIn, is it advisable to connect with a person as close to HR as possible if you don't know, can't find the actual decision maker? I get that so often. Don't connect with HR. That's not what we're doing here. Okay? It's easy to connect to a recruiter. You apply for a job. It goes right to the recruiter. It goes right to the recruiter who's looking to fill that position. Like, isn't that perfect? Right? You don't need LinkedIn to connect to a recruiter and say like, oh, let's be friends. The reason for using LinkedIn is to network with people who aren't the recruiter. Okay. And if you're looking for a decision maker, the decision maker will be the manager. Okay. Any manager is a decision maker for hiring. Okay. If they don't supervise people directly and are hiring people directly, a lot of the times they are called in to assist in the decision-making process. Just give me your 2 cents. Who should we pick? Right? So what I mean is that pretty much anyone with the title manager, is probably, the likelihood is that they are a decision maker for a job. Now, if you're a fully qualified accountant, right, you probably won't want to connect with a sales manager who supervises salespeople because you're not a salesperson, right? You would want to connect with the accounting manager, right, or the chief financial officer, right? That's what LinkedIn is for. That's how you do networking on LinkedIn, right? So you connect with the appropriate manager. So the way that works is that you would probably want to do a search in your area at a certain company, let's say, for people with a certain title. Okay. They have the word manager in their title, and you look at all the results, and several of the managers will be in the accounting department. Those are the ones you would want to connect with, right? Right? That's what we're talking about here. Don't use the LinkedIn method to connect with recruiters. I mean, it's unnecessary, and recruiters don't want you to go through alternative channels. They want you to just send in your job application. They want to funnel you into the standard channel, right? The whole point of this is to go around that, is to circumvent that hiring system. Who does this? Everyone. People who have a work gap. The recruiter won't sign off on them as a candidate. They get a job by talking to the manager. Manager sees like, hey, you're a great person to talk to. You seem to know your stuff when it comes to this business. You have initiative. You're reaching out to me, showing like a lot of skills just doing that. And I get along with you really well, and you make me feel good. Yeah, next time we need somebody, sure, yeah. Send in an application. Send it to me, Right? That's how that stuff works. Okay. This is obviously a big topic. That's what I cover in that course. Well, it's one of the things I cover in that course. So if you want to get like the whole thing, beginning to end, step by step, all the principles, I put it all there because you can't explain it in 2 minutes. You just can't. It's just so much to it. It's not hard. It's just that, there's a lot of principles at play, and you bring them all together to do this. Okay, so Michelle, getting back to you. Yeah, I didn't know if I interpreted that right. You said correct. It was pleasant. Thank you. Okay, good. Good. Well, we're coming up to the end of this. It's been nearly 2 hours, so I want to thank everybody that's sent in a question. You guys are awesome. There's 15 of you still here. So thank you for joining me today. Hopefully you got something out of it. I'm here every Wednesday at the same time. So if you do have more questions in the future, come back and we can connect over the live stream. And I will be back on late Friday night, early Saturday morning with the Beyond Employment live stream for people who want to go beyond simply working as an employee. You want to make money through some other way, usually working for yourself. Okay. If that's of any interest to you, join me on that live stream on Friday. Everybody can see it, but you got to be a member to ask questions. It's not really a Q&A type thing. It's mainly sort of exploring the concepts and how to do certain things. Okay. So thank you very much. You guys are awesome. I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Take care of yourselves.